Welcome to the set of notes on how a bill becomes a law in Unit 5 of called the legislative branch. All right, so we're going to break down all the steps on how a bill becomes a law. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video, the Schoolhouse Rocks video, I'm Just a Bill. And while a lot of those steps are there, they're not fully accurate, or they're not fully explained, and there's a couple of things that kind of get left out that I feel like you just definitely need to know to understand this process of how a bill becomes a law. It is complicated, and the likelihood of a bill becoming a law is very low. All right, so first and foremost, we need to talk about who can propose a law. So anyone can suggest an idea for a law. So constituents are the people that are represented by the elected officials. So anyone who lives in the state for a senator, or anyone who lives in the district for a representative, is a constituent. So you might want to out to the side to remind yourself, constituent are the people that are represented by the elected officials. A Congress member can suggest a idea, or interest groups, and essentially you can suggest an idea for a law. However, only members of Congress can take a proposed law, so a suggestion for a law, to the House of Representatives or the Senate. So a person who's actually sitting as a member, a voting member of the House or the Senate, can actually propose that law to those chambers. All right, so what happens first? First and foremost, a member of the House or Senate drafts or writes a bill. So they get an idea, they get a suggestion, and they draft a bill, writes a bill. From there, they submit the bill to the House or the Senate, depending on which chamber they are in. Okay, they submit it. It gets a number. If it's in the House of Representatives, it is starts with the House, like HR for House of Representatives, and then it gets a number. So, and it is a number based on, it goes in order. So the very first bill that is proposed gets 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. At the end of a 2-year term, you are talking bills into the thousands. Not that they have passed thousands of bills, but they do have thousands of bills that are suggested. If it's in the Senate, it starts with an S. The bill is then sent to the appropriate committee. Now, off to the side on this, you need to write that in the House of Reps, so HR, it's the Speaker who sends them to a committee. The Speaker decides that. And in the Senate, it is the Majority Leader. The Majority Leader determines where in the Senate side of things. So make sure you write that on out to the side of this. I will be checking for that on your notes. Now, what is a committee and why do we need them? So a congressional committee is a legislative sub-organization in the United States Congress that handles a specific duty. So your committees are like large groups, like they could be up to 50 people on a committee. And it could be a broad topic, so it's like education. So they break it down into subcommittees, and the subcommittees deal with a very specific duty, a very specific area of the general concept of the committee. So committee membership enables members to develop specialized knowledge of the matters under their jurisdiction. It's kind of, they act as little legislators. They have committee monitors ongoing of governmental operations. So they're looking to see if previous laws that they have passed have been implemented the way they want them to. They identify issues suitable for legislative review. They gather and evaluate information. They recommend courses of action to their parent body, to the full committee. And Woodrow Wilson once wrote, "It is not far from the truth to say that Congress in session is Congress on public exhibition." Okay, so when they're in session, you have the full House. They are in public exhibition, meaning people can see what's going on. Whilst Congress in committee rooms is Congress at work, because this is where the true work is done. Okay, it is not expected that a member of Congress be an expert on all matters and subject areas that come before Congress. Congressional committees provide valuable informational services to Congress. So the committee members and the subcommittee especially are experts in that area, but then they rely on other members of Congress to be experts in their subcommittees and whatever committees they're on. All right, so the type of committee, very quickly, this is not on your notes, but you might want to put it out to the side that the type of committee that is dealing with the bills is a standing committee. And we talked about this in the previous set of notes. It is a permanent committee in the House or Senate that studies bills related to the general topics. So education, agriculture, science, defense, foreign policy, like foreign affairs, those sorts of things. The committee chair assigns the bill to the appropriate subcommittee. So we have the speaker who assigns it to the committee, and the committee chair who decides what subcommittee can be there. But you need to know the subcommittee or the committee chair, the committee chair can decide not to send it to a subcommittee. That it can die here. Okay? So you might want to write this out to the side as well, that the committee chair may not assign it to a committee or subcommittee, and it dies. All right? All right, so let's talk about these subcommittees. The subcommittee studies bills related to a subset of the topics, which we have discussed. All members of the subcommittee are part of the standing committee. So we have the 50 members, and say we have 5 subcommittees. So there's like 10 members out of those 50 on each of the subcommittees. Most of the discussion in Congress take place here, especially in the House of Representatives. You have 435 members. This is what it's going to take. Okay, committees are the backbone of that side of the legislature. So the chair of the subcommittee, in consultation with other committee members, decides whether to schedule a bill for discussion. So the subcommittee chair can kill the bill as well. Okay, so the subcommittee may also decide to stop action on a bill that they think is not necessary or wise. The bill then dies. So the chairman of the standing committee can stop it, can be like, we're not talking about this bill. It's going nowhere. We're putting it on a shelf. It's called tabling. It dies. The chairman of the subcommittee can do the exact same thing. We're not talking about this bill. Not going to do it for whatever reason. This means that that person, the subcommittee chair, is not in agreement with the committee chair if the committee chair did not table that. But the subcommittee chair can table it as well. And then the subcommittee can just say, listen, this is not a wise bill. It's not necessary. And it dies. End point. Okay? So far we have 3 places where the bill can die. Okay, a little more about subcommittees. Subcommittees are the first to hold hearings on a bill. What does this mean when I say hold hearings on a bill? They tell people to show up and testify on that bill. Testify before the committee. Okay, they're experts in the field. They are either for it or against it. Whatever it is, they're going to provide valuable information to the subcommittee to hear things on the bill. All right, so that's what we mean by hearings. It may be someone who has been affected by this issue and they want to get their personal testimony. That is a hearing on the bill. Okay, so they might give supporters, opponents, and experts a chance to voice their views. But you have to go to Congress and you're going to testify before Congress. This is also when amendments or changes to the bill are then suggested and voted on. Okay, we need to change this phrase. We need to put a comma instead of a semicolon. We need to have a the instead of an a, or the word a. Those sorts of things. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too big. It could be big, broad things. It could be very narrow. Let's change certain words. They can also decide that this proposed law as written, they don't like. They don't think it's a good one, and they can totally rewrite the entirely new bill. Okay. Finally, after they have hearings and they've voted on, they have dealt with amendments that they have voted on, then they're going to vote on the new and improved and the changed bill. In the subcommittee, they vote up or down on it, so it could die here, and then it can go to the full committee. Okay, if the bill does not pass the full committee, they vote no on it, it dies. Okay. So the speaker can kill the bill by not placing it in a committee. The chairman can decide to kill the bill by not having it heard, like not placing it in a subcommittee. The subcommittee chair can be all like, I don't like this bill. I'm not listening, hearing it. It does. The subcommittee itself can kill the bill, can be like, nope, It can pass the subcommittee, go back to the committee, and the committee itself is voting on it going, nope, we don't want this bill. Okay, now, down here at the bottom on the screen, you see down here, it says markup. right? The process by which congressional committee and subcommittees debate, amend, and rewrite proposed legislation. You need to put that on your paper. It's something I'll be checking for when I check your notes. That is what amendments are. Those changes, okay? They're marking up the bill. They're making changes to it. All right, then we move, let's talk about the standing committee, the full committee. They get the bill. They discuss the bill. The committee members suggest and vote on the amendments, so they can make changes even in the full committee. It doesn't happen very often in the House, but it does frequently happen on the Senate side. The committee votes on whether to send the bill to the full House or the Senate. Okay? If the bill passes this vote in the full committee, the committee will write a report explaining the key points of the bill, the changes they have made, how this bill compares to current laws, and why they recommend this bill for approval. The bill and the report are sent to the full House or Senate. Okay? But they cannot do that unless it gets a positive vote, an affirmative vote from the full committee. You can't do that unless it gets a affirmative vote from the subcommittee. All right, and they get this, and then they get this report, and this report's attached now to that bill. So everyone will be able to look and see what the changes were made and why they were made and the reason they voted in favor of it. Now, finally, okay, so now they've voted in favor of it. It's going to the floor. The bill is placed on the calendar in the House or Senate until it's scheduled for discussion. Both chambers have multiple calendars, and different calendars are called for different days. Sometimes you'll have two calendars on the same day, like one in the morning, one in the afternoon. The speaker or the majority leader, the speaker in the House and the majority leader in the Senate, will determine what calendars are getting pulled for what day. Now, the House and the Senate have different rules for debating the bill. All right, so in the House, debate on the House floor. So the House is chaired by the Speaker of the House. Before the debate begins, a time limit is set for how long a member can speak, usually 1 to 5 minutes. This is done. This time limit is set in the Rules Committee. So I want you out to the side to draw a little arrow, highlight that part, and then draw the arrow to the side, Rules Committee. It is the most powerful committee in the House of Representatives. That's where you want to be if you are, in the House of Reps. All right. So they're the ones who determine the time limit. They, have a lot of powers over that bill. Okay. And then once it's called up, once the speaker says, now we're going to now we're going to discuss House Bill 540. The first member to speak is for the bill, someone who is in favor of passing this bill, and then someone who is against passing the bill, and then it flip-flops back and forth on that time limit. Okay, and sometimes the Rules Committee is like, listen, we're giving everyone 5 minutes, but the total debate time is 2 hours. Okay, not for all 435 members cannot debate in that 2 hours. And the debate on a bill can be ended by a simple majority vote. They can be take a vote, we're ready to vote. We're ready to close the debate session on this, and it takes a simple vote. Following the debate, the amendments to the bill, if there are any amendments to the bill, can then be suggested and debated. Again, this is done, this has to be approved by the Rules Committee. So out to the side, put confirmed by the Rules Committee, because the Rules Committee can say no amendments on the floor. And then you don't get to make any amendments, can't make any changes on the floor. It's however it comes out of committee is how it's going to be passed. The same rules apply. And finally, the bill is put to a vote of the full House. On the Senate side, the Senate is chaired by the Vice President. Okay, the President pro tempore may chair in his place, which is often is the case. And really, remember, we talked about this. It often gets handed over to some junior members. There are no time limits to debate in the Senate. Okay, out to the side of this, draw a little arrow from this, highlight this part. Out to the side, you need to write the word filibuster. This allows the Senate to have a filibuster, which means there is no limit on the debate. The debate can go on for days. It also means that members are not limited to how long they talk about the bill. Remember, in the House, it said usually 1 to 5 minutes. In the Senate, if I want to get up and start, if I get recognized by the chair, I can start talking and I can just keep talking. That's what a filibuster is. And it doesn't have to be on the topic of the bill. I can read Green Eggs and Ham. I can read the New York City phone book. I can, recite the lyrics to, some song. Whatever it is, I can just keep talking. and I'm going to delay the vote on this bill for whatever reason. Okay, and we'll talk about it more in specifics in class, but just know the time limit is what allows the Senate to have the filibuster. Make sure it's written there. Members may speak for as long as they choose. Amendments may be offered at any time during the debate because the Senate does not have the Rules Committee, and so they can add amendments to this bill and make changes on the floor. But again, there's 100 senators versus 435 representatives, which is why it's very different in structure on how bills are done. At the end of the debate, whenever it might be, the bill is put to a vote. All right, so what happens next? From here, both the House and the Senate must pass similar forms of a bill. Okay, so you need to understand that the House and the Senate must pass similar forms of bills. They got to go, it's got to go through one chamber and it's got to go to the other. If a bill is passed only the House or the Senate, then it's sent to the other one. The only stipulation is if it is a revenue raising bill, it must start in the House first. Okay, revenue raising bills must start in the House first. So if we're talking tax, anything to raise money for the federal government must start in the House. Write that somewhere next to this part. It's sent to the other chamber. It goes through the exact same process that we just talked about for that chamber. They debate, they amend, they mark up, and then there's a vote. If both the House and the Senate have passed similar bills, the thing is, they're similar bills, but they are not exactly the same. Therefore, the two bills are sent to a conference committee. Okay, yet another committee. So in the conference committee includes members of both the House and the Senate. So both members come together. The committee discusses the differences between the two bills, and they try to work out the differences. They try to come up with a compromise, write a single version that they think will pass both of their chambers. So they rewrite the bill in a form that they think will pass, and then they vote on it. After they pass the rewritten bill, the committee writes a report that contains the rewritten bill and an explanation of how they worked out the differences between the two bills. Yet another report that gets attached. Once there is a rewritten bill, it goes back to the floor of both respective chambers. The House passes the bill. If they vote in favor of it, it is sent to the Senate. If the House or the Senate does not pass the bill, if they vote it down, they say no, the bill dies. Okay, the bill can die back in conference committee. Like they couldn't come up with a compromise. It can die there. If the bill passes in both the House and the Senate, it is then sent to the president. To the president has four options. He can sign the bill into law. He can also do a law without signature. So essentially it's sent to the president. It sits on the president's desk or somewhere in the office of the president for 10 days. It does not get a signature in those 10 days as long as Congress is in session. And remember, we talked about they're almost always in session anymore. Then at the end of 10 days, excluding Sundays, the bill becomes law. Okay? That is how most bills are put into law. The president just doesn't sign them because the president's doing other things. The third thing the president can do is a veto. He can choose not to sign the bill, so it will not become a law. So he can veto it. He's got a little option to be veto. If he vetoes it, it goes back to Congress and goes back to the House of Representatives first, and they vote to see if they can overturn it with 2/3 of a vote. And both houses have to do it. So it goes through the House, it goes to the Senate. If both houses get 2/3 of their members to say, yes, we want it to be a law, they override that president's veto. And then the fourth thing is a pocket veto. If after 10 days, the president has not signed it, sat in his desk, 10 days excluding Sundays, and Congress is not in session. So really the only time this is going to happen is end of December, beginning of January. So Congress has adjourned until, January, whatever date. They're no longer in session, and the president has this bill sitting there. The president doesn't like the bill for whatever reason. He lets it sit there for 10 days. The bill does not become a law. It is a pocket veto is what that's called. This goes through that whole process. Make sure you look at it. We will talk about it in class and really make sure we understand the process, because while I'm Just a Bill is a nifty little song gets stuck in our heads, it is not fully accurate. If you have any questions, let me know, and remember, don't do anything too stupid. Bye guys.